Hi, my name is Valeria Popov, and welcome to the Supercharged Plant-Based Lifestyle. And today I have such an honor to interview Gabriel Cousens. Hi, Gabriel.
Hello, Valeria. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing today?
Actually, terrific. It's really good. Life is
Yes, that's what I want to hear.
really good.
Would you be please so kind and talk about yourself a little bit for people who might not know you?
Okay, so my interest in live food started really back in 1975. That's a while ago, like 45 years ago. And in meditation, I was received, let's say, an energetic awakening. In India, we call it Shakti, awakening from Swami Muktananda, and a little voice rang out. Like, I'm not thinking about this, but it says you should learn to eat and live in a way that supports the Kundalini process. Kundalini is the spiritual energy that takes us to liberation. When there are different names for it, but we'll just use that name because people are familiar with the idea of yoga and Kundalini. So over the next 7 years, partly living in India, partly living in US, I explored and looked at the different ways to best support spiritual life. In essence, how we can become a superconductor of the divine. And what I came about at the end of that story by 1983 was the best diet is a 100% vegan, plant-based diet and at least 80% live foods. Now, personally, I've been on 99% live foods since 1983. When I got clear, that was the best diet. So my interest into that is, oh, this is about spiritual life. And then, of course, there's all kinds of benefits along the way. And maybe I'll share now because that's my interest. My lifestyle really began organizing itself about that. And I didn't exactly have to lose weight, but I will tell you that I've basically been at my high school weight since that time. What I see, and I see sometimes people lose in a year, literally up to 60 pounds, okay? And on our diabetes program, which is 3 weeks, I've seen people lose 43 pounds 46 pounds on a live food diet, 3 weeks. But I don't focus on weight loss. I just know that when you're on this diet, it's going to emphasize and bring you to your optimal weight, period. So I say, don't worry about it. You're either going to gain a few pounds if you're really underweight, or you'll lose, and I said, up to 46 pounds in 3 weeks, and over up to 100 pounds actually in a year. That's what I've seen happen. And then you stabilize. Okay, and that's the key thing, is you want to be optimal weight. Now, what I've also observed for people is optimal flexibility. So my chronological age is 77, but I have no problem sitting in full lotus for a few hours. Okay. Well, when I was 20 as captain of an undefeated college football team, I couldn't even cross my legs. Okay. Couldn't get, the best I could do bending over was get to my knees with my hands. Now I can put my palms on the ground. So what I'm going to say is, on a live food vegan diet, we will get more flexible, okay? And I'm also going to say, contrary to mythical beliefs or fears, on a live food diet, we will also get stronger. Now, what do I mean? So as a captain of undefeated college football team, National Football Hall of Fame, so, okay, I could do 60 push-ups. That's at age 21. So at age 60, I had 601 push-ups all at one time. And last week, I went to 700 push-ups. And that's at age 77. Now, that's a clear statement. You can get stronger. Now, do you have to work a little harder? I think you do have to work a little harder, but not that much harder. So we can get stronger with age, more flexible with age on this diet. I mean, it's not the only thing, but what I'm saying is this diet is extremely powerful. I'm going to say as a rejuvenating diet, as a diet for strength and endurance, and also flexibility. Endurance is a little harder to measure, but I would say that it works. You will have more endurance. So what we're saying is, hey, it's a good diet, that's cool, but really there's huge long-term benefits. Now, I haven't mentioned, but in my experience, I have to share, part of my work is curing diabetes. So one of my books is There's a Cure to Diabetes. How did I arrive at that? Well, somebody wanted to do a movie about life food. I said, no, let's do something interesting. So I took and really have a lot of people studying in 2007 in 3 weeks on a live food vegan diet. This is what I want people to hear. They're 61% healed who weren't insulin dependent, 24% healed who were insulin dependent, meaning they're off insulin, their blood sugars are less than 100, which is non-diabetic. So it's very exciting as a cure for diabetes. Now, one of the questions that came up, and I'm going to just kind of mention this because I think it's important. People say, well, what's the difference between live food and vegan? That's a fair question. It's like an important question. Well, Neil Bernard, who I really like, he's another physician. He found, helping people move vegan, that they had a 46% decrease in their medications and a little bit of a drop in their blood sugars, okay, like 30 points. So my people were at blood sugars, they had 161 drop in their blood sugars. 97% were off all medication in 3 weeks. His program went 5.5 months. What am I saying? There's a gigantic difference between a live food diet and a vegan diet in terms of healing power. It's really important for people that there's a huge, vegan's good, but 99% live food, or I'm going to tell people 80%, is far more powerful. And diabetes is a good example of that, but it's true pretty much across the board in terms of that. So we're looking at strength, and I'm going to say that for women too, because women are getting more interested in strength, and then obviously flexibility, tone, endurance, okay? And so strength, endurance, flexibility, but also it's the most powerful healing diet on the planet, without a doubt. Just comparing 3 weeks just to vegan, 5.5 months, far better results. So those are kind of what have empowered me to kind of really promote the live food, plant-based diet, is I'm seeing phenomenal results over the years, over 45 years. So I'm speaking from direct long-term experience, not a theoretical thing. So that's my background. My focus is more spiritual life, and it definitely helps spiritual life as well, very significantly. There are lots of different studies we've had, but basically 95% of people going this diet get more interested spiritually, okay, and also creatively. So that's a little bit my background. That's my lifestyle. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm living. So I kind of said a few things, but it's a good introduction. And we enjoy life. Well, the life food diet is not a contraction. It's an expansion to your life. It's like, well, this is fun. I feel strong. I feel the energy going. All my areas of energy that I need, you know what I mean? Obviously sexual, but physical, mental clarity, huge difference. I find that people on this diet, literally, because I rate people in terms of memory and mental clarity, in terms of, I have people rate themselves when they're doing the program, and they may start at 3 out of 10, and in 3 weeks, they're at 9 out of 10. Memory improvement, mental clarity improvement. So it's like, whoa. So on every parameter, it's really, really good. So that's where I'm coming from with it. It's like, this is fun. This is my lifestyle. It's not work. It's just part of how I live. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's amazing. I would never tell that you're 77. Not even close. Thank you so much for this beautiful introduction. And I have a first question for you. How are we affected by the food that we choose to eat, and how we're affected spiritually, physically, and environmentally?
Right. So I answered a little bit because I got ahead of you because I know the questions, but generally we're going to have more energy. And I write about in a variety of my books, Spiritual Nutrition and Rainbow Diet and Spiritual Nutrition Kundalini. We basically end up having 2 to 3 times the amount of energy. So what does that mean? Most people get tired during the day. I'm going nonstop, period. So it makes a huge difference in energy. I'm going to tell you 2 to 3 times. There's a lot of research behind that. But so you have more energy. As I mentioned in the introduction, if you're really following it and doing some exercise, because this doesn't happen magically, you got to do the work, you are going to get stronger. You are going to get more flexible, and you will lose weight. What you're going to do is you're going to come to your optimum weight, and then it's sustained. Now, clarity of mind is, I'm going to, again, say this is a big deal. What I've observed with working at live food, because I'm also a psychiatrist, so I'm a medical doctor, I'm a holistic physician, psychiatrist, spiritual teacher. I've taught in over 40 countries. I have not taught in Russia yet, but I will get there. I don't know what that's about, but I'll get there eventually. So what I'm observing is this is true wherever I go. That's really what I'm saying. And I'm seeing people from all over the world. They all are improved by going on the 100% vegan, at least 80% live food diet. I'm going to make a caveat here. If you go 100% live food, you will move more quickly. But if you do 80%, which is where most people do, it may take a year or two to get to this kind of peak performance thing. So on my diabetes program, people are on 100%. Okay, fine, you're going to lose. Literally, people have lost up to 46 pounds. Think about that. That's a lot. And we're not focusing on weight loss. It's just, you're going to go to normal. But getting back to what I was saying, neurotransmitters. So I focus on people's minds because I wrote a book, Depression Free for Life. And what I've observed in the live food diet is that all the neurotransmitters come back into balance, which is pretty exciting. It took me a while to figure that out. But I had people who couldn't afford certain supplements that increase your neurotransmitters. But over time, the neurotransmitters came back. And then, so what do I observe? As I write in my book, there's a 400% decrease in depression. That's huge, because depression is a big, big problem in the world today, all over the world, not just in the United States, okay? And a 300% decrease in anxiety. Well, these are huge, because really, really people are having major depression, anxiety issues. And I'm going to say, this is obviously true for men and women, but men are more affected, not in a good way. So men have more suicides and more things, particularly men in their 40s and 50s. So really, when they go on a live food diet, what I've observed is they tend to move out of their depression. I won't guarantee it, but I'm saying this is the best diet. It stimulates the neurotransmitters, and everything starts working in your brain as well as your body. Pretty important kind of statement. So that's how I kind of got involved and got interested in the benefits. So we're talking about not just mental, anti-depression, anti-anxiety, but it also makes you more open to spiritual life. So we, in a sense, become a, as I call it in my books, superconductor of the divine. Okay, so that's all. If that's your interest, you're going to get that. If weight loss is your interest, you're going to get that. If strength, endurance, flexibility is your interest, you're going to get that. And it's pretty exciting. And I'll say one more thing, which is we can get better with age. That statement isn't out there, and that's why I emphasize the push-ups. Because okay, fine, you're 21 years old, star athlete, and you can do 61 push-ups. Okay, 70 push-ups. That's still good. That's more than anyone else doing it. But now at 700 push-ups, what am I saying at age 77? So 57 years later, I'm stronger and more flexible than I was at 20. Now, that's a statement about live food. So I'm kind of challenging the myth that you get weaker one with age anyway, or a vegan live food diet is going to make you thin, emaciated, and weak. People have those kind of fear myths. So we're talking all these levels, right? Physically stronger, flexible, more endurance, more energy, 2 to 3 times more energy, a clearer mind, significantly less depression and anxiety. I mean, really, and increased strength. So all these things happen on this 100% vegan, at least 80% live food diet. At any age, I want to stress that. I actually had a lady, she was 96 years old. She came to my diabetes program. It's a fun story, okay? She's got diabetes. She's got high blood pressure. She's got heart problems. She's on 13 different medications, okay? So at the end of 3 weeks, what happened? She's out of her wheelchair. Oh, she had severe arthritis too. She's out of her wheelchair. She's off all her medications. Got it? Her diabetes is gone. Her arthritis is basically gone because she's able to walk. She's out of her wheelchair. And I saw her a year later, no diabetes, no heart problems, no high blood pressure. She was great. Walking around, she lived in New York City, walking around, just really good. So at any age, I want to qualify that. People think, oh, I'm too old to do this. No, that's not true at all. 96, this lady is an example. I have other people who are examples, but she was a little bit more dramatic, right? Everything clears in 3 weeks, and she's steady for the next, I haven't seen her since then, but for the next year. That's a statement, any age. So these are really good messages for people to hear.
Yes. Thank you so much for that example too, because I mean, it's great that she discovered it in 98, but I just gonna urge people not to wait till 98 and get all those benefits and don't suffer, just don't suffer because it's unnecessary. Like it's really not necessary.
Right, exactly. And I have a lot of people, 70s, 80s, dramatic reversals in a few weeks, or they go on the diet, it takes a year or two. But, so what? You're 83, what's a year? And you're just better on all these levels that I'm talking about. It is not just one level. Oh, I lost weight. No. Your mind is better, your memory is better, flexible, energy, strength, endurance. It's a good thing.
Yes, thank you so much. So it leads me to a second question. So how is our body and mind affected by animal products?
So I'm going to it's a really good question. So I'm going to talk about it in several layers, okay? What we know is you don't have, as a medical doctor looking at it, we know that animal products increase your rate of getting diabetes from 35 to 50%. That's a starter. Increase your rate of osteoporosis fourfold for men and women. Okay, fourfold. Animal products create an excess of estrogen. So meat-eating women actually have double the amount of estrogen in their feces. Well, that's important because obviously at some place estrogen is good. When you get older, excess estrogen is not the best if you're worried about breast cancer and things like reasonable thing to be thinking about. So you got about half the amount of estrogen. The other thing is that animal products have leucine and isoleucine. Those are amino acids. Most people haven't heard what I'm about to say, right? But what we know is leucine destroys the beta cells of the pancreas. And methionine is the second most. So they actually, and I'm going to say animal fat, fish fat being the worst, and then chicken, and then finally, beef, red meat, fat. So we're talking about actually destroying the beta cells of the pancreas, which make insulin, which explains why 35 to 50% greater increase in diabetes for meat eaters. You see what I'm saying? Now, leucine and methionine also block the mTOR pathway. Now, what am I talking about? That's the longevity pathway and anti-cancer pathway. So high leucine, high methionine, which you get from meat, is actually going to shorten your lifespan. And we certainly know that vegan live longer. There isn't much research on live fooders because there aren't enough live fooders to do research. But basically, and there's variables, but vegan men live 7.2 years longer, and vegan women live about 4.4 years longer. What's the difference? Well, my thinking is women generally pay more attention to their health, and so the gap isn't quite as much. But still, 4.4 or 7.2 years, that's still a significant longevity issue. So that's another piece to the story. You have more energy, your mind works better, significantly less disease, pretty much covers also, for example, kidney disease. You're eating meat, yeah, meat eaters have about 26% of meat eaters get kidney disease, 2% of vegans. That's a big difference. Cancer, significantly more. It depends. When I say depends, somewhere between 2 and 4 times more cancer, depending on the organ. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, between breast cancer and brain cancer and pancreas cancer, it's more, 2 to 4 times more. Eggs, I'm putting there in this story too. People who eat eggs once a week have 76% more type 2 diabetes. If you're eating 3 eggs a week, you're really tripling your rate of diabetes. That just gives you an overview, So what do we know about fish? People think fish is really healthy. Well, what we see out of Europe is people that have fish 2 to 3 times a week have 38% more diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So there are pretty clear statements. Meat eating is not good for your health. No, but there's other levels here, okay? Animals have a certain energy. We call it astral plane energy. And what we see is that you're taking that energy and it's kind of jamming your astral plane. Let's just think about that for a second. Now, there's certain areas like multiple sclerosis where people eat beef and it really, really impairs them. So what I see putting people on a live food diet with multiple sclerosis, I see 100% success rate. There's a few more tricks to it, but my point is, if you jam the astral plane with meat, fish, chicken, you are actually going to undermine people who are more sensitive, and so meat's affecting it on that level. So that's the disease level. Mental clarity, meat eaters do have more depression, more anxiety, and obviously more diabetes and so forth. Okay, so that's another piece. As I point out a little earlier, there's 400% more depression and 300% more anxiety with meat eaters. Now, taking it to slightly another level, because this is multi-level, but before an animal dies, it has pain, fear, and misery. It's secreting that into its tissues. One of my spiritual teachers from India, Swami Prakash Nana, said, when you kill an animal, you create pain, fear, and misery. And when you eat that animal, you take that pain, fear, and misery into yourself. So if you think about anxiety and depression, guess what? You're amplifying that energy. You're amplifying that fear. So there's another piece to that story that we need to understand, is that we take that pain, fear, and misery, and it's affecting our consciousness. Okay, now another level. Part of my work as a spiritual teacher is looking at what best supports the flow of the spiritual energy, which in the yoga tradition we call Kundalini. Okay, so what am I talking about? So what we see is that humans have a subtle nervous system. We call it the nadis, Nadis. We have 72,000 nadis, 3 main nadis. I won't go into the whole esoteric, but the Kundalini flows through the nadis. The central channel is called the Sushumna. Now, meat, fish, chicken, and dairy clog the nadis. They actually block the flow of Kundalini, and I've documented that in my research. And that's why I'm talking about the flow of the Kundalini energy. Is it does actually get blocked, and when people go vegan, the energy greatly increases. Well, that's obviously pretty exciting and pretty important to understand. So that was part of my first book I wrote in 1986. Okay, Spiritual Nutrition and Rainbow Diet. Like, what are we going to do here? Also, in terms of chakra systems, everything works better on a vegan diet because you're not taking, the other word is energy of death. Okay, so energy of death blocks the flow of Kundalini, energy of life. Pretty big deal here. Now, let's go a little further, is that we have another system in the subtle anatomy called the koshas, which are layers of the mind. And so when you're eating animal meat, fish, chicken, dairy, and eggs, okay, you are taking that energy of death and captivity, cows are usually captive, okay, into your system. It actually not only blocks the flow of the spiritual energy, or partially blocks it, and that's why all traditions except one do not recommend eating, animal products. And then the second part of that, besides blocking it kind of lowers your consciousness. So a traditional yogic teaching here, which I've noted, is that you're taking animal consciousness into you. We're trying to get beyond the animal consciousness of our body from a spiritual point of view. So you see what I'm trying to say here? It's pretty important. So if we're trying to raise our spirit and we're taking animal consciousness, animal ego consciousness into us, we're going to lower that. So that's a very traditional yogic teaching, and I believe it's true. Okay, final point, as I'm going to get a little esoteric here, okay? But in the Indian system, and also I'm going to say Kabbalistic system, there's an awareness that you can devolve. Study evolve. We're supposed to put on a planet to evolve, right? So it's possible by your actions in a past lifetime, you can reincarnate as an animal instead of a human. Now that's a pretty significant thing, and it's those two systems talk about it more overtly. So if you're going to eat meat and you don't know what you're doing, right? You don't know that's a possibility. You can actually take on a devolved soul and some of the negativities with that, which can further decrease your evolution, impair your evolution. There are certain prayers where you can actually release the soul that you take on. That's another topic for another place. What I'm trying to say here is you can take in devolved angry souls that can actually hurt your spiritual evolution. So not only does it block the flow of the spiritual energy, but you can take these on. And as I say, that's in two different traditions that I'm pretty aware of in the big picture. Now, I'm also a Native American sun dancer. I'm bringing this up for a point. And what we call ego dancer. And most people don't know what that is, so I'll just roughly say, so 4 days you go without food and water, and they have hooks in your chest, so I have little scars on my chest here and here. Women, they do it on the shoulder, not on the breast. And being on a live food diet, I was really only one in like a group of 60 to 80 people, depending on the dance, to go all 4 days without food and water. The only one. Pretty important statement, in terms of Because when I first did it, everybody's like, "Why aren't you having buffalo stew?" They were kind of making fun of me. It's like, well, you'll see. And at the end of the story, by 4 years, people not only respected it, that I was a live food vegan, but more and more the coming out of the dance, more and more vegan food was there. But again, for 4 years, I was the only one to hold the energy. So I think it's important. And then as I researched Native American, because most people think Native American is buffalo, right? That's the Plains Indians. But two different researchers have shown that, I'm going to say, well, the research says 95%, but about 90% of the Native Americans pretty much had a vegan diet. So a lot of people don't know that because they're thinking buffalo. But what I'm saying is that's not really true. And so I think those are some messages just to get rid of mythology, but it really changed things to be the only person. And as the live food vegan, just blew people's minds that I could go all day. And the eagle dance, you're attached to the tree for 4 days with the hooks in your chest. I was the only one to actually complete it fully, which means standing from sunrise to sunset. Again, out of 18 people. And so that's a message, because people say, well, what is that about? And that's where people get, okay, if you want strength, flexibility, endurance, this is the diet you need. And actually, it's a traditional Native American diet, except for the Plains Indians. So I just add that in because it's important to understand. People say, well, the Native Americans, they weren't vegan. Well, that's not true. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very natural.
So that's a lot.
Yes. Well, but thank you, though. Gabriel, can you tell us about thyroid health?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because in my clinical experience as a holistic physician, it's the one area I see people not doing as well. And I said, well, why is that the case? Well, because a lot of vegetables have anti-thyroid factors, like, the cruciferous vegetables. Okay, and that is a concern. So what do we do about that? And there are lots of problems going on because of radiation. In the Bay Area, they did different radiation experiments. I'm not sure when it was, in the 60s or something like that. And people particularly had really low thyroid. So what am I going to do about that? Having lived in the Bay Area, it's like I began to develop a little bit more support for thyroid. But I saw it happen more in live food vegans. And I believe it's because of the cruciferous vegetables, which have anti-thyroid factors. So what do? Generally, I give people more iodine. I use a special scalar wave active iodine called aluminine, which is extremely important today with all this COVID-19 stuff, because it knocks out COVID-19. It knocks out, it's been shown to knock out MERS, Middle Eastern kind of SARS type thing, and SARS. So, okay. So we have something that's going to protect us, but we want, almost everybody I see who's a live food vegan or is just a vegan needs some thyroid support. So iodine is the most important thing, and concentrated. So we have, as I say, this aluminine. It's very well activated. Why aren't I saying sea vegetables? Why aren't I saying dulse and kelp? Well, because of the contamination from Fukushima, 100% of the sea vegetables, dulse, kelp, and all that, in the Pacific Ocean are contaminated. Besides the fish being 100% contaminated. But so how are we going to do it? How are we going to go about this? So I look at the iodine that I get is mined. It's not contaminated by the atmosphere. That's how I look at it. So that's kind of how I approach it, because really the oceans are being contaminated in lots of different ways with radiation, but radioactive iodine from Fukushima and all kinds of, from Chernobyl, from different places. The rate of mortality sorry, the rate of diabetes is 200% higher in the area around Chernobyl, all the way into Europe. Also, Fukushima, so 60%, this is unbelievable, of the kids 12 and under, in the Fukushima area when it went off, 60% developed type 2 diabetes. Now, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like huge. So we are looking at thyroid as the generally needs some support. I like iodine to start with. And then I use other vegan support systems, certain herbs and so forth. But it is an issue. Anybody's going to do the live food diet or vegan diet really needs to monitor their thyroid to a certain extent. Unfortunately, the thyroid tests aren't so accurate, maybe 50% accurate, called flip a coin. But body temperatures are important, but not on your tongue. Underarm for 10 minutes, 5 minutes before you get out of bed in the morning is the most accurate thing. And you want to be between 96.6 to 97.2 in terms of what you want the range to be. So that's the thyroid story. People do need to pay attention.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you tell us your nutritional protocol for COVID-19, since that's what we're experiencing nowadays? I know that you have an amazing nutritional protocol for it. Can you share it with us?
Sure. So first I want to say I have this newsletter, and I just put a new one out two days ago. So if people want to get on the newsletter, they just go to drcousens.com, sign up for the newsletter. It's no cost. And I have it all printed out just so people know. And I always include the nutritional protocol. So just in general, they know there's access. And actually, that's where you can get your free gift. So there are choices there too. drcousens.com. Easy. Get on the newsletter. Easy. Now, that being said, I have 4 things when I call the top tier. Okay. One is the Illumidine, which has been shown, again, to treat SARS and MERS, and seems to, test well. And I don't like to really give an amount over, but basically we're looking at 20 drops 3 times a day in water away from food. That's number 1. Number 2, silver, nanonized silver, colloidal silver, kills over 625 different things. And I recommend a minimum of 1 teaspoon twice a day, but you can go 1 tablespoon 4 times a day. There's a range, but that does kill pretty much most viruses and bacteria, fungus, and so forth. The third is zinc. And that's another area people who are vegan life could get a little deficient in, but a lot of people are deficient. We use, again, a angstrom zinc, but zinc gluconate is good. And roughly, I would go a few weeks at maybe 50 milligrams a day and then drop to 30 milligrams a day. There are some protocols, which I'll get to in just 1 second. So there's also, and then there's red marine algae. And I've used that for years for treating people with herpes, and I really haven't had a relapse in anybody with the different variations of herpes. Okay? So those are your big 4. I want to kind of stick with that for a moment. We don't understand. I mean, it's pretty clear, and in my various newsletters, I've shown in 4 different countries, laboratories, they've shown it's a weaponized virus. And it's more weaponized for infectivity, okay? So even if it tampers down, it can kind of come back. And where you're seeing people are getting relapse, well, you shouldn't, right? Once you get something, you should have an immune system, but that's not appearing to be the case. We can't trust a lot of the data, unfortunately, coming out of China, so we can't quite get a clear feeling. But what I will say in general, for people to understand, and my last newsletter makes it pretty clear. People are kind of in a little bit of a lot of fear and panic, but the data really doesn't say you need to go that way. Okay, so first, being on a live food vegan diet is going to be very, very protective. That's number one. Second, in Italy, 99% of the people who have died at any age had at least one major health problem. 50% had three major health problems. Three major. So it's obviously affecting the sicker people. But they never say that. Well, they just say all these people are dying. But 99% had a major health problem, one, and 50% were three. So that's a big deal. Now, we also know that high blood pressure is like one of the main things. That did come out of China. You see what I'm trying to say? So obviously, there is a debate that got resolved in the 1880s. Louis Pasteur said the germ is a problem. Claude Bernard, the terrain is your overall health. So on his deathbed, Louis Pasteur said Claude Bernard was right, it's the terrain. My message is, don't focus so much on the germ, focus on building your terrain, which is everything we've been talking about. It's the live food diet. It is these kind of antivirals that do protect you. It is exercise. I suggest breathing exercise. My wife and I do pranayama every day, breathing exercises every day. We want to strengthen the lung qi. By the time people are 70, if they aren't doing it, again, lose it or use it, 50% lung capacity is lost. So we want to expand our lung. A strong Chinese word, lung qi, yoga word, lung prana. We want to do that. Exercise, maybe 4 times a week at least, walking fast, jumping on a trampoline for 16 minutes, it doesn't have to be excessive, but all these build your general life force. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about the terrain. Washing hands, is important. There's some research out that is so simple. It's like, don't touch your face, and wash your hands as much as you can. Now, my wife, I just happen to have this here because this is called Germs Be Gone. You spray it. It's aromatherapy. Put it in your hands, okay? And I'm going anywhere I'm touching, I'm going to put that on, okay? Now, we also use nebulizers. So we're spraying the air, and I use iodine, hydrogen peroxide one, and certain aromatherapies and another. It's a really good thing to do, and it's super simple. 8 drops of luminine, 1 or 2 tablespoons hydrogen peroxide and water is one type of thing, and the other is just water and the aromatherapies that are specifically antiviral, like what I have here, which is Germs Be Gone. So these are kind of some, basics. Keep a good hygiene. We don't go out in public that much, and it's generally a good idea. The research isn't clear, but basically that it can hang around in the air for quite a while. And they did a study in 2005 about masks, and they found that in 8 out of 9 studies, masks made a difference in decreasing infectivity. So that's an N95 mask. So I just want to mention, you're going out in public, N95, probably wear gloves, kind of basic hygiene. Now, what I see in the big picture, because I kind of laid it out there, there's a bunch of other supplements I talk about. Zinc, I mentioned, but vitamin C, quercetin, lots of different herbs. That's just a long list, but if you just get those 4, that's great. And you'll do the hand washing hygiene and kind of keep a little social distance. There is some evidence that works, but everybody's kind of new at this. So, as a physician, I'm thinking, well, the worst can happen is you're going to get healthier. the best can happen is you're going to save lives. So that's why I kind of give this advice. Let's go with those recommendations. Mentally, we want to stay out of fear, and that it lowers your immune system. And what I'm really saying is, yes, it's 10 times more mortality with it, but when you look at flu, literally 10 times more people at least die of the flu each year than have died from COVID. So we have maybe 3,000 people at this point. Maybe by the time you hear this thing, it'll be 4,000. But we already know 45,000 people as of a few days ago, and we're April, beginning of April. 45,000, maybe 50,000 have already died of the regular flu this year, and that's from October to that. So far more people, I'm going to say at least 10 times more people, and that's an underestimate, are dying of the flu each year than from COVID virus. So we have to kind of put this in perspective. So let's not go into fear. This is a simple protocol. When you're eating lower on the food chain, it's obviously better. You're going to be healthier. So that's what I'm recommending is, go down on the fear, meditate, pray. If we see it from a spiritual point of view, okay, I've talked physical. If we see it from a spiritual point of view, this could be a giant positive reset for the world, like a new heaven and new earth. I tend to take that point of view. So we're going inside for a little bit to contemplate and coming out creating a new world. And obviously it's in contrast to the world of fear and separation. It's about unity and kind of love. So that's the high note. That's why I ended with that. It's like, okay, we can use this in a really good way if we choose to create a new world and a new vision of who we are. And obviously upgrading our terrain, which is, a good diet, going back to exercise, breathing, feeling love. Relationships are very important. What we know is that people in relationship do live longer. And I'm going to also say women who aren't in relationship live pretty long. Men who aren't in relationship don't live as long. So we have, relationship longest, women second longest, single men third longest. And divorced men do terribly, whereas divorced women don't do as bad. Now, there are lots of reasons for that. I'm just saying relationships important. People who are in some kind of group connection have half the amount of depression. So maintain social relationships even over the internet. I'm doing my workshops over the internet now, and it's fun. And people are getting the Shakti pot from my eyes over this. And, that connection is important. So keep your connections. Don't actually go into isolation mentally and spiritually. Yes, physically, it's not a bad idea. So that's kind of the overview with the COVID. Total protocol, total updates. You can see my newsletter, but it isn't, far less people are dying from COVID than each year the flu. And then we ask the question, why are we shutting down all over the world when it's so much less people dying from COVID than from the flu? And malaria, we're not talking thousands. About 260 people die of malaria, million people die of malaria each year. I do a lot of work in Africa, so I'm aware of that kind of thing. So perspective, let's gain back our consciousness. Don't worry about the fear. Take care of yourself. Your chance of something happening is less than 1% if you're following these things and you keep healthy. I would say significantly less than 1%, maybe 0.625% in some researchers would say. So don't worry, but keep healthy.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So you talked a lot about live food. What is the difference in between raw and live food?
It's a good question. Hold on a second. There we go. It's a good question. And the difference is live food is very fresh. So what we know, okay, is that really within 3 days, live food loses a lot of its energy. That's what we know. Raw food is uncooked, but it's not necessarily fresh. So in my research with Carillion photography, really strongly recommend people pick it fresh that day. I mean, pick it fresh and eat it that day. So we try the best we can. That's why farmers markets are good. Now it's hard because people aren't going out. Here, we're kind of doing gardening and sprouts. Sprouts are easy to do fresh. So the difference is live food really is full energy. And after really max 3 days, it's lost most of its energy, according to Korean photography pictures.
Thank you. Yes. And also, I have a question about herbs. So, what herbs and spices do we supposed to eat, and what's the most beneficial for us?
So a little bit of herbs and spices, we're looking at constitution. For example, a copper person, I tend to be a little bit more copper, what we call, uh, they tend to run a little cold. So they want to have more heating herbs, okay? So we're looking at cayenne, we're looking at ginger, which are all very, very good herbs. Pitta people shouldn't have a lot of cayenne because they're more fiery. So we're going to vary a little bit. Now, what I learned living in India, working with Ayurvedic doctors, you still need the full range. But if you're Pitta, you're going to have more, if you're Kapha, you're going to have more ginger, which is really good for you, and more cayenne. So cumin is also good herb. There's just a lot of herbs out there. What I'm saying is people need to be aware of heating herbs. And if your constitution is cooler, you'll want more heating herbs. If your constitution is too watery, you'll want more drying herbs, astringent herbs. So there's a lot of variation. That's like a chapter or so in my book on conscious eating. But I'm giving you general guidelines for how to look at it. So if you're hot, go to cooling. If you're cool and damp, go to heating, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I would say and how to think about it. That's kind of really what I want to mention.
Thank you. And I was watching your videos on Facebook, and you made this beautiful video. It's about our situation right now with the COVID virus and how we are social distancing or physical distancing. And
Right.
you refer that as being in a cocoon, like we are going through this transformation, or we not going through the transformation, but if we choose to go through this
That's right.
transformation,
Right.
if we choose to go through this transformation, that we, at the end of it, we can come out as a butterfly, as a changed person. Would you tell us a little bit more about how can we support ourselves in a transformation, especially right now?
Okay, it's a great question. How do you become a butterfly? Okay, and this is an opportunity because pretty much almost around the world, people are having to go indoors. Okay, for whatever reasons we don't talk about, it's a time to upgrade our diet. So it's a time to move towards, 80% live food, 100% vegan. That's a wonderful time because it's going to make you healthier. Now, it's a time also to start exercising, start doing breathing exercises. These are the 6 foundations. It's going to build your chi, your prana. Third, keep the heart connection. See, what the danger of isolation is people actually get isolated. That's not what we should be doing. We want to keep internet connection. We want to be as much connected to our family. It's really a good time because people are so busy. We're overextended outward. This is a time to go inward and reflect on your life, reflect on your relationships, which is important, and work on them. Sacred intimacy. okay, which is another topic. But this creates that. The fourth is the spiritual work, which is getting aware that we are the light of God, okay, and that's meditating and praying, uh, knowing we're the light of God is a huge thing. Now, the research is kind of suggesting that we can actually shift the consciousness on the planet from this death, fear base into life, joy, God base. So it's a time in a big way to return to God because our society has moved away. So we can see this as a huge wake up call. So I talk about the plagues in Egypt. Well, that was a huge wake up call to everybody. Look at the plagues. Wow, this is heavy. And we are seeing the plagues today. There are certain rivers around the world that turn red. You see the pestilence, like in China, they've had 3 different kinds of pestilence that killed most of the pigs, a lot of the pigs. And okay, obviously we have plague, which we're having now with this. There is an increase in earthquakes and volcanoes. So in Africa, we have the locusts that are eating things, but they're moving towards China. They've already hit Iran. I mean, that's a lot of plagues, okay? And we have death, which is kind of the 10th plague. So all that is going on. Are we going to pay attention or not? So to me, it's a wake-up call on this other level that we can now take advantage of it to transform ourselves in all the ways I just mentioned. And again, our physical body, our mental body, meditating more because we have to be quiet inside, right? And we look at relationships, sacred relationship, very, very important, really, really important in terms of overall health, but spiritual. Because sacred relationships can be a pathway to God because your two are becoming one. It's very, very powerful. But you transcend your ego in that. And so that sacred merging, I'm hesitant with the word tantra because people connect with sex. And I'm really, no, the real tantra from Kashmir Shaivism has to do with a total awareness of our oneness with God. Okay. It isn't just about sex. Hardly. And then upgrading our relationship with the environment. I call it spiritual ecology, coming in the right relationship with community, different ways, that we can do it. How do we uplift the community? How do we uplift the global brain? Well, meditating, praying for peace can actually shift the electromagnetic global brain. That's a very real thing. So those are kind of the multiple levels that we're looking at that we can, when we cocoon to become a butterfly, is to look at all those aspects in our lives. Obviously, our return to God is one of the biggest calls here. Not everybody's going to hear it, but we have gone way away. And if we see the plague in that cosmic way, doesn't matter that it came from China, it doesn't matter it was bioweaponized. Yeah, but still, it's a plague, it's a wake-up call, if that makes sense what I'm saying. So that's an overview there.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your education. And Gabriel actually has a free gift for us. Would you please share with us what it is?
Okay, first I want to give everyone a blessing that we take this time to transform ourselves into butterflies so that our spirit can fly and we can wake up not just ourselves, but transform the world. Now, if people go to my website, there's options with the gifts. So there's downloads from different books and you can choose that. So just go to drcousens.com and you can choose the gift, according to your interest rather than one gift for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to thank all our viewers for being here with us today. And I'm going to thank you, Gabriel, for your generous information and education. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for your good work. because you're getting out to lots of people. This is great. It's what we need to do. So it's very important you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm very happy to participate now or in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Goodbye.